presenting our newest game, Warped. I'm James Bowie Wilson, and I'm the company president and art director.
I'm Chloe Lister. I'm the development director and lead designer.
I'm Jordan Klein. I'm the executive producer.
I'm Shizhong. I'm the technical director.
I'm Jonathan Shu, and I'll be the lead programmer.
Wonderful. So that's who we are as individuals, and now who we are as a company, Sombra Corp, the face of serious games. And we are founded soon after graduation. You want to tell them a little bit about that, Chloe?
All right. Well, we came together on an advanced game project while we were all at USC. We departed for a little bit and worked remotely while some of us went to grad school, some of us worked at larger companies, but we've all come back reunited in Culver City, and we've, through the support of the large Twitter following we acquired over that time.
Yeah, so it was kind of a hectic period in our lives, and we still managed to make a pretty successful game, which we'll be showing you shortly. And we're thinking with a little bit more funding and a little bit more focus, we will be able to put out an even better game, so get stoked about that.
Yep, so here's the structure of Sombra Corp. At the top we have President James Bowie Wilson. And then there's me, the executive producer, who handles the business side of things. Right under me is Chloe, who's our development director, and she's the design lead. She also leads the tech directors too, as well as James as the lead artist within the game. Aside from that, we have our configuration manager, community manager, and accountant who handles some of the stuff on the side, but I'm going to be completely full-time.
Absolutely. So we aim to keep as much in-house as we can, because we fear contract work, you have sort of some difficulties, the lack of commitment and loyalty to the project. We'd rather have people who are part of the team, who really feel like their game is their game. So most we try to keep in-house. Our last game, which was the game made while we were all off and about, Warlots, was a single-player fantasy RPG. Actually, Jonathan, you might tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah, so our original game was called Warlots, and it's now on the Steam store. We won Technical Excellence Awards at IGF for what we developed, and it was based on an in-house physics engine, which we codenamed Ursidae, and an advanced particle system that was originally developed for the personal computer platform, which we will be using for our new project.
We named it Ursidae in part because most of the physics systems out there couldn't bear with our advanced loads and strains we were putting on them. So, we had to up the standards here. And now we would talk about the specific money stuff, but we're gonna hustle straight on to the good stuff, the games here. So the next game coming out here will be Warped, and that is a orthographic combo-centric game. If you guys remember playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance, you had that sort of, somebody had said like a firestorm, and somebody else would punch through it, now it's like a flaming punch. So we're hoping to do something similar with sort of elemental magic users. So if one person, throws like a rock at somebody and somebody else is throwing a fireball and they meet in the middle and it's like a lava blast, sort of the fun combos, all that kind of good stuff. And you and your friends can hop on your mobile, your iPad, and just start blasting faceless enemies. It'll be set in a ruined Hong Kong, and you'll be just fighting your way through the Forbidden City, fighting hordes of these enemies and other casters and blowing shit up. Should be a good time. For the actual sort of play here, we've got some usability testers who've been really enjoying it. And, absolutely. So we're going to have to keep on hustling through.
Don't worry about that.
Keep on going. Just note it.
Just
Just
keep
note
talking.
it.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to be using the multi-touch controls from the newest iOS. It's going to be for iOS naturally. And we're using our in-house development system again with its advanced particle system to help us sort of represent these elemental combos blasting off so everyone sort of gets the right feedback. Yeah. So I guess we actually could do questions. Are folks interested in asking some questions about the company or the games? Or?
Wait, the director, the technical director, I will explain our mechanics. We will use the virtual panel to move, to come back, and we have the optional choice to turn on the gravity sensor to move. So also you can turn off it. So about the platform, we choose iOS because everyone knows iOS is the most profitable platform. So later, in order to grab the market share, we may have enter the worship. And
Yes. What's the question?
Are you sure this sort of game is fitting on a mobile platform? I mean, like,
Oh,
it seems pretty hard to control.
So, multi-touch controls. Controls are actually a very good question. We spent a lot of time with that. So, using one thumb, you can place the location of your spells, sort of whatever spell you're planning to use. And with the other thumb, you gesture either up, or waves, or circles, and they sort of represent different types of spells you can cast at that location. So in some cases, you might wave across the screen to bring in a small tsunami to hit that location. Or in another example, you might click where you see somebody else lighting up their firestorm and try to throw in a ice ball and melt it and maybe generate some steam to sort of cause some smoke so archers can't shoot through it. It's a sort of simple few spells that, when comboed, make some more interesting mechanics happen. And yeah. Any more questions? Yeah.
So I don't know if the game is single player or multiplayer. You were talking about how like you combo with different spells and like the fiery rock, etc.
Yep.
But it seems kind of hard to do that if it's not multiplayer.
So
You know,
the nice thing about iOS is that we can have Shu and me playing in the same room, or if he's at home, logging online. It's a multiplayer system, right? So iOS you can do multiplayer, and we plan to. Not in the full, league where you have like a huge leagues, but if you and your friends are online, you can join in and play cooperatively.
okay, I
That's
got it.
actually something
It just
I-
didn't say, so I wasn't sure.
Gotcha. That's entirely fair. Thanks. We'll make sure to emphasize that.
Okay, we'll just go ahead and stop here because we're over by a
It
minute
was
and a half.
very
Yep.
confusing, actually. What exactly was the end of the presentation?
Because you guys,
That was your last slide.
Yeah. And then we
Okay,
just-
all right.
okay,
So I guess you had the end of the presentation at
Last slide, we
4:30.
introduce ourselves before we take questions.
That's fine.
Yeah.
but also you need a wrap-up slide. You need something that like brings us
Summarizes.
together because
Yeah.
it was just like you guys were going along and then just over. It was done.
Well,
Yeah.
And then like there was an encore where you talked some more about your game, and then
Yeah.
okay, cool. You want to go
Sure.
first?
Text is very small. I spent a lot of time looking at text and reading it instead of paying attention to you, and even though I was very cognizant of it, starting 30 minutes in, I still found that I was spending a lot of time reading that text. Don't introduce sections of what you're talking about, just go. And so I know you're trying to give this more of a casual feel by saying, oh, why don't you talk about this thing? And yeah, okay, I'll talk about this thing. We don't need that, just go. If you get rid of all that, that saves almost 30, 40 seconds just there. A little too much on backstory, put org chart at the end, 2 minutes and there's no game yet, that is unacceptable. We need to know what your game is in the first minute. Some people, Brady will probably say in the first 30 seconds, because he just will not suffer that.
You mean Hardy?
Sorry, Hardy. Like you want-
Yeah.
I think it's funny that you said personal computer platform. I've never heard that phrase. Like, it's
PC
just,
stands for.
it certainly makes sense. Yeah, PC platform, sure, okay. But personal computer platform is funny when you think about it.
We'll emphasize that.
Warped. You finally got to the warped title at 3 minutes in. You really need to focus on efficiency of communications. I'm really confused by the end of your presentation being at 4:30. There was sort of a false alarm there. iPhone is the most perfect platform. I think that you need to do some much more specific design. So the thing about this project is that you're not making a game the same way that we were doing when we were doing our board game design projects, where we are focused on all these low-level things. This is a much more high-level presentation to different people. You're not presenting to the end consumer. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't think about the specific low-level things that are going to attract people to this game. Right now, I don't know any of those specific things, any of those anchor points, anything that will draw me in either as a consumer or a larger bullet point that will draw me in as a person who is attuned to the marketing space or a business guy. There needs to be far more specifics that are going on. You do need to, this is a presentation assignment, but it is a game design assignment, and I want to see game design happening.
What are give us a top 3 things you want to see, I guess.
What is warped? Well, just tell me, what is warped right now?
Let's say
without going to any other
Sure
presentation
enough.
slides.
multiplayer sort of Marvel-like game where you have combos and sort of brawler and yeah, poorly
Okay.
worded grammatically, but that's the broad idea.
Okay. Well, okay, you can do more than that. I mean, right now you've got a sense of a system here. It sounds like you've got a system, you've got elements, and they can be combined in different ways, and that's really cool. You went on and on about the possibilities, and you're hinting at potentials, and that's cool. It's a lot better in this case to sort of define specific points of your system and let us think of the potential that it can grow into.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you just had something like a visual showing, oh, this guy throwing a fireball and this guy throwing a big piece of metal into it, and suddenly you've got like an impromptu railgun or something like that. I don't know, but you know, if it was a visual of that as opposed to you going on and on about, oh, you could do this, and you could do this, and you could do this, having that specific anchor point on there actually gives me some solid information to jump off of, and then I can look at that picture and maybe I will mentally substitute other elements based on the things that you mentioned. Oh, you mentioned water, and okay, water fits into this visual that's there, ice fits into this visual that's there, magic fits into this visual that's there, but having like specific things that you want to highlight that are anchor points for us to latch onto while we're thinking about how viable this game is, as opposed to, whoa. Because right now, the way you're talking, it sounds a lot more like a spitball session of, oh, you could do this, oh, you could do this, oh, you could do this. Don't say what you could do, don't say this is the potential of this game. Say that this is what we've got for you, this is what we've designed for you right now, and we're selling it. I think it's awesome.
And along those lines, screenshots for you guys are critical. You have to have mock-up screenshots. And
Absolutely.
all of you growing up in the age when you grew up, you really, best case scenario is you have an animated thing that looks like a screen capture of your prototype of your game, right? So it looks like gameplay. You're like, yeah, here's a few seconds of gameplay. Just show some gameplay, right? Cool. Okay, yes, I also said text is really super tiny. An org chart would be better. Holy God, that's a lot of text on one slide.
The bio page?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And that you don't need the bio page. You just need to know like what your role is, and the real, like we sort of talked about this some in the last class because it kind of became apparent. The order should be, you know, introduction of like, this is the company, this is the previous game, you know, briefly, then this is the new game, and you go for a while, and then, you know, this is the business case for the new game, which is where you talk about, and here's the people we would need to hire and that kind of stuff, right? So that's, but yeah.
How do you fit the new game into the first 30 seconds if you have to talk about the previous game? Do you just like hustle through
You
it?
just talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
Yeah, just like, you know,
It's pretty easily. So it's in the first 15-30 seconds, it's, hey, we are these guys, and
Let's just
we
do
came
it the way
together
we
at
have it
USC,
right now.
and we made this game, and it got some success. So therefore, we are going to present this.
yeah. And that's basically it, you know?
Yeah.
And also, mixing it up to like 2 or 3 titles. You don't really need 2 or 3 titles, like, you know? Like, and you can also be, you know, like the specific title I don't think matters. I think you want to avoid, like, you know, I'm the chief creative officer of these 3 people. You know, like that kind of thing is kind of silly. You know, every company has a president, even if you're a sole proprietorship, you're the president of that company, because it's a legal thing that has to happen. But, you know, like, yeah, but just like, you know, hey, yeah, I'm the sort of producer, or I'm the lead artist, I'm the lead designer, you know. In small companies, you use the term lead because everybody contributes to everything. So cool. I thought the first handoff to Chloe was kind of nice, and then it got kind of a little bit cutesy when it was done too much. Yeah. Chloe, don't look at your notes. You know that. But yeah. Yeah. You guys are the second Elemental Magic multiplayer game today.
Seriously?
Yeah. There's one that's kind of like Magicka.
It's in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, exactly. Zeitgeist, right? Just be aware of that. And you know, huh?
I said, can we go first?
Yeah. Well, no. But that's the thing. Is like you just need to be aware that you know, and you see this with anything. Like any game idea you come up with, your log line, there's gotta be 10 other games in the space that are the same thing. So part of your presentation is how do you differentiate yourself to where your game is unique, right? And you guys specifically are doing that because there's 2 games that have a kind of a similar log line, but really every single team needs to do that. It's like, what's unique about your offering? You said serious games. I don't know if that was like a cute joke. Just
Yes.
avoid that forever.
Can do.
You talked about Hong Kong, and then you had a lot of polygons in that image of Hong Kong. At the same time as talking about the iOS platform and talking about several magical things that iOS is particularly bad at, like large particle systems and physics. So just, you know, it's not the most perfect platform for physics and particle systems. So just be aware of that. And, you know, like, as you talk about your old game, say, and the thing that people really were blown away by was that we were able to pull off this physics and particle system stuff on a mobile device. So we're going to take that and, you know, and maybe you can even say, and that was like the cool thing, the gameplay was okay, so we're going to go for better gameplay using the same tech that was so good. You know,
Yeah.
whatever. Talk about controls more. Thumbs or swipes with fingertips, it turns out the control on an iPad and an iPhone is quite different because quite frequently we are using thumbs on this device and holding it this way or this way, but with this, it's more often a fingertip. And so it is a little bit different between the two, and then you've got the iPad mini, which is in the middle,
So
and
we should have 2
sometimes
different
one
versions
either.
of controls.
Well, just like be aware of that when you're thinking about designing your controls. Yeah. And you can actually show like, you know, what is the person going to be like when, you know, but talking about like, okay, I center this and I do this, that ends up to me being different on different devices. Latency issues for real-time games are really hard. You know, we're already believing that you can do the physics and particle thing, and then you want us to also believe that you can do a real-time game and deal with the latency as a small indie team when, you know, giant.
Can we say, if we make the timing of combos like long enough, as in if the effect lasts for long enough that the latency wouldn't matter?
Sure, yeah.
As we have to say we've solved the type latency technically, or can we say we've solved it in design?
You can say, I mean, you can sort of say you've done both. You just need to address it. In any multiplayer game, you can talk about latency. And latency obviously is less of an issue than it used to be, but still.